Hello and welcome to Wisdom Trek. This is Guthrie Chamberlain and I am your guide to wisdom. Thank you for joining us for our 7-day-a-week, 7 Minutes of Wisdom podcast. This is day 29 of our trek. In the past 2 days, we looked at the 12 trails of life that we can take in order to infuse us with courage. Today we'll consider how trekking up the mountains and through the valleys is much like life. We cover a lot of topics on our podcast, all focused on gaining wisdom and insight that help us to create a living legacy. Many of the podcasts are in series or steps that cover multiple days. So if you've missed any of the episodes, please subscribe to Wisdom-Trek on iTunes, Stitcher, or listen to it on wisdom-trek.com. Today we are recording our podcast from our studios at the Big House in Marietta, Ohio. The renovations on our house are coming along nicely, and it looks like we'll be able to finish the wood floors in the eating area this week, which will allow us to put that room back into use once again. The new wainscoting in the upstairs office looks great also, and the specialty contractor has matched the woodwork in the other parts of the house exactly. Once the rooms are completed, I will post a couple of the pictures on our journal for Wisdom Trek. This podcast will originally air on June 29th of 2015, which is the birthday of our youngest of 5 children, Fred. He is 28 today. It's hard to believe that since I don't even feel that old. So happy birthday, Fred. We love you. So let's continue up the trail today on our trek of life and see the analogies between our virtual trek and real life. As we make these analogies, most often what comes to our minds is we want to be on the mountaintops all the time and avoid the deep valleys at all costs. What we may fail to realize is that in order to reach the summit of the mountain, we have to traverse up many of the rough and winding trails. Once we do reach the mountaintops, if we desire to continue on with life, then we must move forward. This will require that we head back down into the valleys of life. Climbing the high mountains of life can be just as difficult and challenging as we feel when we're in the lowest of valleys. Most of the time, we do associate difficult times in our life with the idea of being in a valley. Maybe it's times of depression or despair, maybe you lost your job and you're struggling financially, or maybe your job performance is suffering and you're just not getting along. Maybe it's a relationship that's broken up and it appears to be shattered. I prefer to look at life more in longer stretches, more as seasons than mountains and valleys. Each of us experience the upward climbs and downward slopes, sometimes multiple times each day. There are seasons of life that are hard, terribly hard. During these difficult times, when our world seems to be pitch black and we are stuck in the valley of despair, when we don't know if the new day will dawn or if the sun will ever peek over the mountaintops again, how should we handle these situations? Now, I realize that there are some that have been mired in the valley for years, but that is usually the exception. One of my personal practices that I try to remember, so when times are difficult, is to ask myself this question: what crisis was I having, or what was I worrying about last year on this very same day? Usually I have no clue. Then I remind myself, so shall it be next year at this time. The momentary crisis of today will pass like the storm in the night, and we will soon see the new day dawning with all its glorious radiance. One truth that we tend to forget is, if we want to reach the summit, that climbing the mountain is also challenging. It may mean that we indeed need to make the difficult climb in order to see the sun again. As we travel between North Carolina and Ohio many times a year, we pass through the entire state of West Virginia. While the mountains in West Virginia are not nearly as tall as the Rockies, there are ravines between the mountains that are so close together that they receive very little direct sunlight. So if you live up one of these hollers, then you have to climb to the top of the mountain to see the sun. And so it is with life. If you find yourself in a constant shadow, you may need to make the difficult choices and change the circumstances so that you will once again feel that warm sunlight on your face. If you find yourself in a valley and at the base of the mountain, start climbing, but realize that in order to reach the top, it will require more effort than to remain wallowing in the mire of the valley floor. But be resolute, be prepared, and keep climbing. You will never see the beauty of the mountain peaks unless you are willing to put in the effort of the climb. There are times of success and ease in our lives where it appears that God's blessings are being showered down on us. But those times can be just as challenging as the times that we're in the valley, but just in a different way. The upward climb is actually more difficult than heading back into the valley, but it is so worth it. If you learn and gain wisdom from each mountaintop or valley experience, then each climb will take you a little higher, and each descent into the valley will be a little less deep. The truth is, whether you are climbing the mountains or descending into the valley, life may be difficult. The times when we get to rest on the mountaintops can be grand, and when you reach it, learn to relax, to enjoy, to celebrate those times. The times when we are in the valley are just as important, so learn to reflect, to enjoy, and learn from those times. The mountains and the valleys are the realities of life, This challenges an immature line of thinking that many of us cling to, that one day it will be easy. If you learn from and apply the lessons of life, there may be a season of rest and enjoyment. But if you're waiting to move on to Easy Street permanently, if that's your life ambition, well, you're going to have to wait a long time. Winston Churchill put it this way: mountaintops inspire leaders, the valleys mature them. Now, as a follower of Christ, in times of difficulty or ease, I go to the source of all wisdom, the Bible, for strength and peace. So today, let's look at a psalm that King David penned. It's Psalm 121, and this will help us on our trek of life. David wrote, "I look up to the mountains. Does my help come from there? My help comes from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth. He will not stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he watches over Israel. He never slumbers or sleeps. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord stands beside you as your protective shade. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon at night. The Lord keeps you from all harm and watches over your life. The Lord keeps watch over you as you come and go, both now and forevermore." This passage allows us to realize that we are not on this trek alone. In addition to having each other to assist, we can depend on God to have our best interest in mind. So the key of traversing the trails of life, up the mountains and through the valleys of each day, are the 3 axioms that I end the podcast with. Listen closely to them today at the end of the podcast. Well, that will finish our podcast for today. If you've missed any of our previous podcasts, please check out Wisdom Trek on iTunes, Stitcher, or at wisdom-trek.com. Tomorrow we will learn how to eat an elephant. Now, I love and think that we should protect all of God's creation, so I guarantee that no actual elephants will be harmed during this process. So please check into our camp tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. If you enjoy our daily dose of wisdom, I encourage you to help us out in the following 4 ways. Number 1, leave us your feedback about the podcast at wisdom-trek.com. Number 2, please subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher so that the podcast will be downloaded to you automatically each day. Number 3, please leave us a rating on iTunes and Stitcher. This will help us to know how we're doing. And number 4, spread the word to everyone you know to join us on our Wisdom Trek. I thank you for helping us out. The journal from today's podcast can be found at wisdom-trek.com, where you'll also find wisdom nuggets and free resources. And as we take this trek together each day, let us always remember to live abundantly or fully, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. This is Guthrie Chamberlain reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy the journey, and create a great day. See you tomorrow.